I'm a manga reader. No, not at all. Not at all. I only read manga if I like the anime. Like, what was that? Promised Neverland? Is that what the anime is called? Yeah, this one. I finished season 1 and I was like, I need more. Read it and I was like, what the fuck is this ending? I want you to lock in. I'm always locked in. Doubter hater. You're the manga for it. Did not like it, by the way. Didn't like it. Boo! Boo! Lame! That's what I felt about reading it. Mama, mama. No way you're more of a normie than I am. I think I'm pretty normal, I like to say. Or what? Wait. What? What do you want from me? What other manga have I read in my lifetime? What was that one? Fuck. Yeah, I don't remember. I don't even know how to describe it. But it's like this kid who goes down this hole, and there's like levels to the hole and stuff. Dungeon Meshi. I read Dungeon Meshi too, after watching the anime, like the first season. Is this a good description that I'm giving you? Probably not, right? Made in the Abyss, yes! Yes. Watch that. Watch the anime and then read the book. Or manga book. Sorry. The one with the demons eating kids? Yes. Hi, Nyan. Mysterious Misty Chan. Hello, Nyan. How you doing? Most of the manga too. Some of it is weird, but the art is fantastic. Okay, we're talking about multiple animes at once. Made in the Abyss? Yeah. I like the art. That's mostly why I stayed to, like, finish reading it. But, I don't know. At some point, I kind of got uncomfortable reading that. But the story is good. Yeah. Goblin Slayer is a good watch also. I watched that, but I can't remember anything about it. Okay. Hold on, you guys. I'm just gonna looking for a good playlist song, whatever, for today's reading section. Redo of Healer is epic. What is redo of Healer? Is that the one with the maids? I need to go pee. I'll be right back and then we can go read. We can start reading. We're reading 2 chapters today. So yeah, get comfy everybody. I'll be right back. I'm back. Thank you. Also, hi Dio, Jojo, Berserk, Fist of North Star, over everything else. In that order, don't at me. We won't at you. Who said radio of healer as if it was some peak shit? It was a YouTube chatter, okay? I'm innocent. Defending it or saying it's an unholy abomination? I've watched it, but I don't remember anything about it to say anything good or bad about it. Of course, a guy named Dio recommends JoJo. Based? Disguised as anime? Is it? That's interesting and weird. I wanted to ask, did you read Slaughterhouse 5 since you recommended it, or did you just want to hear her read it? A long time ago. Did you like it when you first read it? I'm enjoying it so far. Let me just drink some more water before we get started. Bruh. Excuse me. Okay, Michi. Wait lang. I mean, I don't understand it. That's what I was trying to do. Stupid tweet! Stay hydrated. I'm trying my best. This is not a book I would reread on my own, but hearing you read it is nice. I'm glad. I can feel myself getting better at narrating as we're reading it. It's very weird. Although I've never listened to an audiobook before. Maybe I should so I can pick up some pointers, you know? Alright, before we get started reading. Never ever, yes. Well, I guess I listened to the Song of Achilles one time because it was on YouTube and I was doing some keyboard modding. And I just put it on. I ended up crying after finishing it. I'm such a freak for them. Who is the one that narrated Project Hail Mary? I heard that he didn't do any research or anything. He just raw dogged the recording. Plus books equals upper's heaven. I'm sorry. I don't know. Is there any other people who narrated that? I don't know. Okay, let me try to do a summary for this, or like a summary of the previous chapters we've read so far. For the people uninitiated or who haven't been tuning in to the reading sessions. But I think most of you are pretty updated, I guess. That I really like, but I can't find it anymore. Do you remember the narrator for it? Maybe you can look for them. I mean, I guess if you can't find it anymore, then you don't remember who the narrator is. Okay, what was... Well, I'm trying to think about what the last chapter was all about. And it's, again, like... Again, if you're not familiar with the story, it's about a time-traveling person. Or at least this person thinks that they are a time traveler. So, the chapters are very all over the place. But essentially, chapters 1 and 3... We're in chapter 4 now. Chapters 1 and 3 have been Billy in World War II, his experience in World War II. And in the previous chapter, they were caught by German soldiers and became prisoners of war. So they spent a lot of the book explaining like what he was seeing, where he was going, and where he ended up. So he ended up in this train car, and it's like towards the end of the war already. So yeah, ended on train boxes, taking in food and excreting waste. Yes. It's a very gory, not gory, but disgusting description that they gave. But Kurt Vonnegut was able to tie it into something beautiful somehow, saying something like humans are so kind to each other or something like that, because they take turns sitting down and standing and letting others sleep and stuff like that, you know. So yeah, it's a very bad summary of the previous chapters, but I tried my best. It's really hard to summarize because it's just Billy Pilgrim is just an odd character, you know. Anyways, I tried my best, so let's continue reading. We're gonna read 2 chapters today, chapter 4 and 5, so that next week we can read one chapter a day. All right? Is Billy going through it? Yeah, that's true. But Billy going through it, but him not really talking about how he feels going through it. It's very third person. Okay. Only lets you read 1 or 2 paragraphs before changing scenes. Yes, true, very true. All right, everybody get comfy. Everybody get comfy. Let me take another sip of water, and then I'm gonna shut up and read. All right. Yes, Billy Pilgrim is the name of the main character. Also, hold on, before we actually get started reading, I gotta put a note here. That saying that alerts and everything is off. Alerts are off. Yes, you can't redeem that today. Well, you can, but after the reading. Is that can you see that up in the corner? Let's just put this over here. I can see, okay. Enjoy the read. Thank you, Nyan. Alright, let's get started. Billy Pilgrim could not sleep on his daughter's wedding night. He was 44. The wedding had taken place that afternoon in a gaily striped tent in Billy's backyard. The stripes were orange and black. Oh, if you remembered, in previous chapter, they mentioned that the train cars were orange and black for like signaling to bombers, I guess, or airstrike, whatever, that there are prisoners of war. I don't know if it's orange and black. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but whatever. Billy and his wife, Valencia, nestled like spoons in their big double bed. They were jiggled by magic fingers. Valencia didn't need to be jiggled to sleep. Valencia was snoring like a bandsaw. The poor woman didn't have ovaries or a uterus anymore. They had been removed by a surgeon, by one of Billy's partners in the New Holiday Inn. There was a full moon. Billy got out of bed in the moonlight. Felt spooky and luminous. Felt as though he were wrapped in cool fur that was full of static and electricity. He looked down at his bare feet. They were ivory and blue. Billy now shuffled down his upstairs hallway, knowing he was about to be kidnapped by a flying saucer. The hallway was zebra-striped with darkness and moonlight. The moonlight came into the hallway through doorways of the empty rooms of Billy's 2 children. Children no more. They were gone forever. Billy was guided by dread and a lack of dread. Dread told him when to stop. Lack of it told him when to move again. He stopped. He went into his daughter's room. Her drawers were dumped. Her closet was empty. Heaped in the middle of her room were all the possessions she could not take on a honeymoon. She had a princess telephone extension all her own on her windowsill. Its tiny nightlight stared at Billy, and then it rang. Billy answered. There was a drunk on the other end. Billy could almost smell his breath. Mustard gas and roses. It was a wrong number. Billy hung up. There was a soft drink bottle on the windowsill. Its label boasted that it contained no nourishment whatsoever. Billy Pilgrim padded downstairs on his blue and ivory feet. He went into the kitchen where the moonlight called his attention to a half bottle of champagne on the kitchen table, all that was left from the reception in the tent. Somebody had stupid it again. Drink me, it seemed to say. So Billy uncorked it with his thumbs. It didn't make a pop. The champagne was dead. So it goes. Billy looked at the clock on the gas stove. He had an hour to kill before the saucer came. He went into the living room, swinging the bottle like a dinner bell, turned on the television. He came slightly unstuck in time. Saw the late movie backwards, then forwards again. It was a movie about American bombers in the Second World War and the gallant men who flew them. Seen backwards by Billy, the story went like this. American planes full of holes and wounded men and corpses took off backwards from an airfield in England. Over France, a few German fighter planes flew at them backwards, stuck bullets and shell fragments from some of the planes and crewmen. And they did the same for wrecked American bombers on the ground, and those planes flew up backwards to join the formation. The formation flew backwards over a German city that was in flames. The bombers opened their bomb bay doors, exerted a miraculous magnetism which shrunk the fires, gathered them into cylindrical steel containers, and lifted the containers into the bellies of the planes. The containers were stored neatly in racks. The Germans below had miraculous devices of their own, which were long steel tubes. They used them to suck more fragments from the crewmen and planes. But there were still a few wounded Americans though, and some of the bombers were in bad repair. Over France, though, German fighters came up again, made everything and everybody as good as new. When the bombers got back to their base, the steel cylinders were taken from the racks and shipped back to the United States of America, where factories were operating night and day, dismantling cylinders, separating the dangerous contents into minerals. Touchingly, it was mainly women who did this work. The minerals were then shipped to specialists in remote areas, and it was their business to put them into the ground, to hide them cleverly, so they would never hurt anybody ever again. The American flyers turned into their uniforms, became high school kids. turned in their uniforms, became high school kids, and Hitler turned into a baby. Billy Pilgrim supposed. That wasn't in the movie. Billy was extrapolating. Everybody turned into a baby, and all humanity, without exception, conspired biologically to produce two perfect people named Adam and Eve, he supposed. Billy saw the war movies backwards and forwards, and then it was time to go out into his backyard to meet the flying saucer. Out he went, his blue and ivory feet crushing the wet salad of the lawn. He stopped, took a swig of the dead champagne. It was like 7-Up. He would not raise his eyes to the sky, though he knew there was a flying saucer from Tralfamador up there. He would see it soon enough, inside and out, and he would see, too, where it came from soon enough. Soon enough. Overhead, he heard the cry of what might have been a melodious owl, but it wasn't a melodious owl. It was a flying saucer from Tralfamador, navigating in both space and time, therefore seeming to Billy Pilgrim to have come from nowhere all at once. Somewhere a big dog barked. The saucer was 100 feet in diameter, with portholes around its rim. The light from the portholes was a pulsing purple. The only noise it made was the owl song. It came down to hover over Billy and to enclose him in a cylinder of pulsing purple light. Now there was a sound of a seeming kiss as an airtight hatch in the bottom of the saucer was opened. Down snaked a ladder that was outlined in pretty lights like a Ferris wheel. Billy's will was paralyzed by a zap gun aimed at him from one of the portholes. It became imperative that he take hold of the bottom rung of the sinuous ladder, which he did. The rung was electrified so that Billy's hand locked onto it hard. He was hauled into their airlock, and machinery closed the bottom door. Only then did the ladder, wound onto a reel in the airlock, let him go. Only then did Billy's brain start working again. There were 2 peepholes inside the airlock, with yellow eyes pressed to them. There was a speaker on the wall. The Tralfamadorians had no voice boxes. They communicated telepathically. They were able to talk to Billy by means of a computer and a sort of electric organ which made every earthling's speech sound. "Welcome aboard, Mr. Pilgrim," said the loudspeaker. "Any questions?" Billy licked his lips, thought a while, inquired at last, "Why me?" That is every earthling question to ask, Mr. Pilgrim. Why you? Why us, for that matter? Why anything? Because this moment simply is. Have you ever seen bugs trapped in amber? Yes. Billy, in fact, had a paperweight in his office, which was a blob of polished amber with 3 ladybugs embedded in it. Well, here we are, Mr. Pilgrim, trapped in the amber of this moment. There is no why. They introduced an anesthetic into Billy's atmosphere now, put him to sleep. They carried him to a cabin where he was strapped to a yellow barca lounger, which they had stolen from a Seas Roebuck warehouse. The whole of the saucer was crammed with other stolen merchandise, which would be used to furnish Billy's artificial habitat in a zoo in Tralfamador. The terrific acceleration of the answer as it left Earth twisted Billy's slumbering body, distorted his face, dislodged him in time, set him back to the war. When he regained consciousness, he wasn't on the flying saucer. He was in a boxcar crossing Germany again. Some people were rising from the floor of the car, and others were lying down. Billy planned to lie down too. It would be lovely to sleep. It was black in the car, and black outside the car, which seemed to be going about 2 miles an hour. The car never seemed to go any faster than that. It was a long time between clicks, between joints in the track. There would be a click, and then a year would go by, and then there would be another click. The train often stopped to let really important trains bawl and hurtle by. Another thing it did was stop on sidings near prisons, leaving a few cars there. It was creeping across all of Germany, growing shorter all the time. And Billy let himself down oh so gradually now, hanging onto the diagonal cross brace in the corner in order to make himself seem nearly weightless to those he was joining on the floor. He knew it was important that he make himself nearly ghost-like when lying down. He had forgotten why, but a reminder soon came. "Pilgrim," said a person he was about to nestle with. "Is that you?" Billy didn't say anything, but nestled very politely, closed his eyes. "God damn it," said the person. "That is you, isn't it?" He sat up and explored Billy, rudely with his hands. "It's you, alright. Get the hell out of here." Now Billy sat up too, wretched, close to tears. "Get out of here, I want to sleep." "Shut up," said somebody else. "I'll shut up when Pilgrim gets away from here." So Billy stood up again, clung to the cross brace. "Where can I sleep?" he asked quietly. "Not with me." "Not with me, you son of a bitch," said somebody else. "You yell. You kick." "I do?" "You're goddamn right you do." And whimper. "I do?" "Keep the hell away from here, Pilgrim." And now there was an acrimonious madrigal, with parts sung in all quarters of the car. Nearly everybody, seemingly, had an atrocity story of something Billy Pilgrim had done to him in his sleep. Everybody told Billy Pilgrim to keep the hell away. So Billy Pilgrim had to sleep standing up, or not sleep at all. And food had stopped coming through the ventilators. And the days and nights were colder all the time. On the 8th day, the 40-year-old hobo said to Billy, "This ain't bad. I can be comfortable anywhere." "You can?" On the 9th day, the hobo died. So it goes. His last words were, "You think this is bad? This ain't bad." There was something about death in the 9th day. There was a death on the 9th day in the car ahead of Billy's too. Roland Weary died of gangrene that had started in his mangled feet. So it goes. Weary, in his nearly continuous delirium, told again and again of the Three Musketeers, acknowledged that he was dying, gave many messages to be delivered to his family in Pittsburgh. Above all, he wanted to be avenged, so he said again and again the name of the person who had killed him. Everyone on the car learned the lesson well. "Who killed me?" he would ask. Everybody knew the answer, which was this: Billy Pilgrim. Listen, on the 10th car, the peg was pulled out of the hasp on Billy's boxcar door, and the door was opened. Billy Pilgrim was lying at an angle on the corner brace, self-crucified, holding himself there with a blue and ivory claw hooked over the sill of the ventilator. Billy coughed when the door was opened. And when he opened, he shit... What? And when he And when he coughed, he shit thin gruel. What? This was in accordance of the third law of motion according to Sir Isaac Newton. This law tells us that for every action there is a reaction which is equal and opposite in direction. This can be useful in rocketry. The train had arrived on a siding by a prison which was originally constructed as an extermination camp for Russian prisoners of war. The guards peeked inside Billy's car owlishly, cooed calmly. They had never dealt with Americans before, but they surely understood this general sort of fright. They knew that it was essentially a liquid which could be induced to flow slowly toward cooing and light. It was nighttime. The only light outside came from a single bulb which hung from a pole, high and far away. It was quiet outside, except for the guards, who cooed like doves. And the liquid began to flow. Gobs of it built up in the doorway, plopped onto the ground. Billy was next to last human, the next to last human, being to reach the door. Fuck, holy shit, wait, hold on. Billy was the next to last human being to reach the door. The hobo was last. The hobo could not flow, could not plop. He wasn't liquid anymore. He was stone. So it goes. Billy didn't want to drop from the car to the ground. He sincerely believed that he would shatter like glass. So the guards helped him down, cooing still. They set him down facing the train. It was such a dinky train now. There was a locomotive, a tender, and 3 little boxcars. The last boxcar was the railroad guard's heaven on wheels. Again, in that heaven on wheels, the table was set. Dinner was served. At the base of the pole from which the light bulb hung were 3 seeming haystacks, which weren't hay after all. They were overcoats taken from prisoners who were dead. So it goes. It was the guards' firmly expressed wish that every American without an overcoat should take one. The coats were cemented together with ice, so the guards used their bayonets as ice picks, pricking free collars and hems and sleeves and so on, then peeling off coats and handing them out at random. The coats were stiff and dome-shaped, having conformed to their piles. The coat that Billy Pilgrim got had been crumpled and frozen in such a way, and was so small that it appeared to be not a coat, but a sort of large, black, 3-cornered hat. There were gummy stains on it too, like crack case drainings or old strawberry jam. There seemed to be a dead animal frozen to it. Sorry. The animal was in fact the coat's fur collar. Billy glanced dully at the coats of his neighbors. Their coats all had brass buttons or tinsel or piping or numbers or stripes or eagles or moons or stars dangling from them. They were soldiers' coats. Billy was the only one who had a coat from a dead civilian. So it goes. And Billy and the rest were encouraged to shuffle around in their dinky train and into the prison camp. There wasn't anything warm or lively to attract them, merely long, low, narrow sheds by the thousands, with no light inside. Somewhere a dog barked. With the help of fear and echoes and winter silences, that dog had a voice like a big bronze dog. Billy and the rest were wooed through gate after gate, and Billy saw his first Russian. The man was all alone in the night, a rag bag with a round, flat face that glowed like a radium dial. Billy passed within a yard of him. There was barbed wire between them. The Russian did not wave or speak, but he looked directly into Billy's soul with sweet hopefulness, as though Billy might have good news for him. News he might be too stupid to understand, but good news all the same. Billy blacked out as he walked through gate after gate. He came to in what he thought might be a building on Tralfamador. It was shrilly lit and lined with white tiles. It was on Earth, though. It was a deluging station through which all new prisoners had to pass. Billy did as he was told, took off his clothes. That was the first thing they told him to do on Tralfamador too. A German measured Billy's upper right arm with his thumb and forefinger, asked the companion what sort of an army would send a weakling like that to the front. He looked at the other Americans' bodies now, pointed out a lot more that they were nearly as bad as Billy's. One of the best bodies belonged to the oldest American by far, a high school teacher from Indianapolis. His name was Edgar Derby. He hadn't been in Billy's boxcar. He had been in Roland Weary's car, had cradled Weary's head while he died. So it goes. Derby was 44 years old. He was so old, he had a son who was a Marine in the Pacific Theater of War. Derby had pulled political wires to get into the army at his age. The subject he had taught in Indianapolis was contemporary problems in Western civilization. He also coached the tennis team and took very good care of his body. Derby's son would survive the war. This is so sad. Derby's son would survive the war. Derby wouldn't. That good body of his would be filled with. Oh, this is so sad. That good body of his would be filled with holes by a firing squad in Dresden in 68 days. So it goes. The worst American body wasn't Billy's. The worst body belonged to the car from Cierso. Cicero? What? Cicero, Illinois. His name was Paul Lazaro. He was tiny, and not only were his bones and teeth rotten, but his skin was disgusting. Lazaro was polka-dotted all over with dime-sized scars. He had many plagues of boils. Lazaro, too, had been on Roland Weary's boxcar, and had given his word of honor to Weary that he would find some way to make Billy Pilgrim pay for Weary's death. He was looking around now, wondering which naked human being was Billy. The naked Americans took their places under many shower heads along a white tiled wall. There were no faucets they could control. They could only wait for whatever was coming. I'm not gonna. Their penises were shriveled and their balls were retracted. What the fuck? Reproduction was not the main business of the evening. Okay. Interesting. Whatever. An unseen hand turned a master valve. Out of the shower heads gushed scalding rain. The rain was a blowtorch that did not warm. It jazzed and jangled Billy's skin without thawing the ice in the marrow of his long bones. The Americans' clothes were meanwhile passing through poison gas. Body lice and bacteria and fleas were dying by billions. By the billions. So it goes. And Billy zoomed back in time to his infancy. He was a baby who had just been bathed by his mother. Now his mother wrapped him in a towel, carried him into a rosy room that was filled with sunshine. She unwrapped him, laid him on the tickling towel, powdered him between his legs, joked with him, patted his belly. Her palm on his little jelly belly made punching sounds. Billy gurgled and cooed. Hello everybody from Kato Stream! My name is Ree. Some people call me Misty. And I am a zombie moth VTuber, currently reading Slaughterhouse 5 by Kurt Vonnegut. Hello, Kato! Thank you for the raid. Hello, Mumpus. Hello, Gwembe. Welcome back, Gwembe. Hi, Static. Hi, Fluffheart. Hello, Joshua Lopez 00100. Hello, Roms Bird. And hi, Stray. I already said hi to you. Patted his belly. Rub my belly. Rub my belly. But yeah, if you wanna stick around, I'm gonna read 2 chapters today of Slaughterhouse 5. Welcome in. And also hello, Froggy Shybot. Welcome in, everybody. Sorry, I have alerts off. So I go, just lock in a bit. But yeah, if you don't mind. I would love to give you some context into what we're reading right now, but if you're unfamiliar about this book, which is understandable, we'll just finish up this chapter. Welcome to stay, welcome to go. But yeah, thank you again for the raid. Yippee! 5 houses. It was gory and gruesome. And then Billy was a middle-aged optometrist again, playing hackers golf this time on a blazing summer Sunday morning. Billy never went to church anymore. He was hacking with 3 other optometrists. Billy was on the green in 7 strokes, and it was his turn to putt. It was an 8-foot putt, and he made it. He bent over to take the ball out of the cup, and the sun went behind a cloud. Billy was momentarily dizzy. When he recovered, he wasn't on the golf course anymore. He was strapped to a yellow contour chair in a white chamber aboard a flying saucer, which was bound for Tralfamador. "Where am I?" said Billy Pilgrim. "Trapped in another blob of amber, Mr. Pilgrim." Oh, wait, I have to do the voice. "Trapped in another blob of amber, Mr. Pilgrim. We are we are where we have to be just now. 300 million miles from Earth, bound for a time warp which will get us to Tralfamador in hours rather than centuries." How did I get here? It would take another Earthling to explain it to you. Earthlings are the great explainers, explaining why this event is structured as it is, telling how other events may be achieved or avoided. I am a Tralfamadorian, seeing all time as you might see a stretch of the Rocky Mountains. All time is all time. It does not change. It does not lend itself to warnings or explanation. It simply is. Take it moment by moment and you will find that we are all, as I've said before, bugs in amber. "You sound to me as though you don't believe in free will," said Billy Pilgrim. If I hadn't spent so much time studying Earthlings," said the Tralfamadorian, "I wouldn't have any idea what was meant by free will. I've visited 31 inhabited planets in the universe, and I've studied reports on 100 more. Only on Earth is there any talk of free will." I like doing that voice. Alright, Chapter 5. Let me take another sip. Is this real voice? That is my real voice. This is me. This is how I really talk for really. Hey, this is a good bit. You're laughing right now and kicking your feet because I'm so funny. Shut up. Kinda hurts to talk that way though. Gonna lie. Okay, here we go. Chapter 5. That was a quick chapter too. Billy Pilgrim says that the universe does not look like a lot of the bright little dots to the little creatures from Tralfamador. The creatures can see where each star has been and where it is going, so that the heavens are filled with rarefied, luminous spaghetti. And Tralfamadorians don't see human beings as two-legged creatures either. They see them as great millipedes, with babies' legs at one end and old people's legs at the other, says Billy Pilgrim. Billy asked for something to read on a trip to Tralfamador. His captors had 5 million Earthling books on microfilm, but no way to project them in Billy's cabin. Bruh, sorry, that was a burp and a hiccup somehow. Excuse me, sorry. They had only one actual book in English, which would be placed in a Tralfamadorian museum. It was Valley of the Dolls by Jacqueline Susan. Billy read it, thought it was pretty good in spots. The people in it certainly had their ups and downs. But Billy didn't want to read about the same ups and downs over and over again. He asked if there wasn't, please, some other reading matter around. Only Tralfamadorian novels. I'm afraid you couldn't begin to understand, said the speaker on the wall. Let me look at one anyway. So they sent him in several. They were oh my gosh. They were little things. A dozen of them might have had the bulk of Valley of the Dolls, with all its ups and downs. Billy couldn't read Tralfamadorian, of course, but he could at least see how the books were laid out. In brief clumps of symbols separated by stars. Billy commented that the clumps might be telegrams. Exactly, said the voice. they are telegrams? There are no telegrams in Telfamador, but you're right. Each clump of symbols is a brief, urgent message describing a situation, a scene. We Telfamadorians read them all at once, not one after the other. There isn't any particular relationship between all of the messages, except that the author has chosen them carefully so that, when seen all at once, they produce an image of life that is beautiful and surprising and deep. There is no beginning, no middle, no end, no suspense, no moral, no causes, no effects. What we love in our books are the depths of many marvelous moments, seen all at one time. Moments after that, the saucer entered a time warp, and Billy was flung back into his childhood. He was 12 years old, quaking as he stood with his mother and father on Bright Angel Point, at the rim of the Grand Canyon. The only little human family was the little human family was staring at the floor of the canyon, 1 mile straight down. "Well," said Billy's father, manfully kicking a pebble into space. "There it is." They had come to this famous place by automobile. Why do I always struggle with that word? They had come to this famous place by automobile. Whatever. They had 7 blowouts on the way. Automobile. It's just seeing the word. It makes it hard. Automobile, whatever. "It was worth the trip," said Billy's mother raptly. Oh God. Was it ever worth it? Billy hated the canyon. He wasn't sure. He was sure that he was going to fall in. His mother touched him, and he wet his pants. There were other tourists looking down into the canyon, too, and the ranger was there to answer questions. A Frenchman who had come all the way from France asked the ranger in broken English if many people committed suicide by jumping in. "Yes, sir," said the ranger. "About 3 folks a year." So it goes. And Billy took a very short trip through time. Made a pee-wee jump of only 10 years. So he was still 12. 10 days. So he was still 12. Still touring the West with his family. Now they were down in Carlsbad. Now they were down in Carlsbad Caverns. And Billy was praying to God to get him out of there before the ceiling fell in. A ranger was explaining that the caverns had been discovered by a cowboy who saw a huge cloud of bats come out of a hole in the ground. And then he said that he was going to turn out all the lights. And that it would probably be the first time in the lives of most people there that they had ever been in darkness that was total. That's scary. Out went the lights. Billy didn't even know whether he was alive still or not. Still alive or not. Today is just difficult reading today for me. Holy moly. And then something ghastly floated in And then something ghastly floated in air to his left. It had numbers on it. His father had taken out his pocket watch. The watch had a radium dial. Billy went from total dark to total light, found himself back in the war, back in the losing station again. The lousing station. The shower was over. An unseen hand had turned the water off. When Billy got his clothes back, they weren't any cleaner, but all the little animals that had been living in them were dead. So it goes. And his new overcoat was thawed out and limp now. It was too much for small. It was much too small for Billy. It had a fur collar and a lining of crimson silk, and had apparently been made of an impresario about as big as an organ grinder's monkey. It was full of bullet holes. Billy Pilgrim dressed himself. He put on the little overcoat too. It split up the back. and at the shoulders, the sleeves came entirely free. So the coat became a fur-colored vest. It was meant to flare at the owner's waist, but the flaring took place at Billy's armpits. The Germans found him to be one of the most screamingly funny things they had seen in all of World War II. They laughed and laughed. Bruh. And the Germans told everybody else to form in ranks of 5, with Billy as their pivot. Then out of doors went the parade, and through gate after gate again. There were more starving Russians with faces like radium dials. The Americans were livelier than before. The jazzing with hot water had cheered them up. They had come to a shed where a corporal with only one arm and one eye wrote the name and serial number of each prisoner in a big red ledger. Everybody was legally alive now. Before they got their names and numbers in that book, they were missing in action and probably dead. So it goes. As the Americans were waiting to move on, an altercation broke out in their rearmost rank. An American had muttered something which a guard did not like. The guard knew English, and he hauled the American out of ranks, knocked him down. The American was astonished. He stood up shakily, spitting blood. He had 2 teeth knocked out. He had meant no harm by what he'd said. Evidently, he had no idea that the guard would hear and understand. "Why me?" he asked the guard. The guard shoved him back into ranks. "Why you? Why anybody?" he said. When Billy Pilgrim's name was inscribed in the ledger of the prison camp, he was given a number too, and an iron dog tag in which that number was stamped. A slave laborer from Poland had done the stamping. He was dead now, so it goes. Billy was told to hang the tag around his neck along with his American dog tags, which he did. The tag was like a salt cracker, perforated down its middle so that a strong man could snap it in two with his bare hands. In case Billy died, which he didn't, half of the tag would mark his body and half would mark his grave. After poor Edgar Derby, the high school teacher, was shot in Dresden later on, a doctor pronounced him dead and snapped his dog tag in two. So it goes. Properly enrolled and tagged, the Americans were led through gate after gate again. Sorry. In 2 days' time... What? In 2 days' time now, their families would learn and from the International Red Cross that they were alive. Next to Billy was little Paul Lazaro, who had promised to avenge Roland Weary. Lazaro wasn't thinking about vengeance. He was thinking about his terrible bellyache. His stomach had shrunk to the size of a walnut. That dry, shriveled pouch was as sore as a boil. Next to Lazaro was poor, doomed old Edgar Derby, with his American and German dogs displayed like a necklace on the outside of his clothes. He had expected to become a captain, a company commander, because of his wisdom and age. Now, here he was on the Czechoslovakian border at midnight. "Halt," said a guard. The Americans halted. They stood there quietly in the cold. The sheds they were among outwardly like thousands of other sheds had passed. They had passed. What? Can I read that sentence right? One more time. The sheds they were among were outwardly like thousands of other sheds they had passed. There was this difference, though. The sheds had tin chimneys, and out of the chimneys whirled constellations of sparks. A guard knocked on a door. The door was flung open from inside. Light leaped out through the door, escaped from prison at blah blah miles. Yes, per second. Out marched 50 middle-aged Englishmen. They were singing, "Hail, hail, the gang's all here from Pirates of Penzance." Let me drink. Ah. These lusty, ruddy vocalists were among the first English-speaking prisoners to be taken in the Second World War. Now they were singing to nearly the last. They had not seen a woman or a child for 4 years or more. They hadn't seen any birds either. Not even sparrows would come into the camp. Blah. The Englishmen were officers. Each of them had attempted to escape from another prison at least once. Now they were here, dead center in a sea of dying Russians. They could tunnel all they pleased. They would inevitably surface within a rectangle of barbed wire. They would find themselves greeted listlessly by dying Russians who spoke no English, who had no food or useful information or escape plans of their own. They could scheme all they pleased to hide aboard a vehicle or steal one, but no vehicle ever came to their compound. They could feign illness if they liked, but that wouldn't earn them a trip anywhere either. The only hospital in the camp was a 6-bed affair in the British compound itself. The Englishmen were clean and enthusiastic and decent and strong. They sang boomingly well. They had been singing together every night for years. The Englishmen had also been lifting weights and chinning themselves for years. Chinning? Their bellies were like washboards. The muscles of their calves and upper arms were like cannonballs. They were all masters of checkers and chess and bridge and cribbage and dominoes and anagrams and charades and ping pong and billiards as well. They were among the wealthiest people in Europe in terms of food. A clerical error early in the war, when food was still getting through the prisoners, had caused the Red Cross to ship them 500 parcels every month instead of 50. The Englishmen had hoarded these so cunningly that now, as the war was ending, they had 3 tons of sugar, 1 ton of coffee, 1,100 pounds of cake, 700 pounds of tobacco, 700 pounds of tea, 2 tons of flour, and 1 ton of canned beef. 1 ton of canned beef, 1,200 pounds of canned butter, 1,600 pounds of canned cheese, 800 pounds of powdered milk, and 2 tons of orange marmalade. Whoa. They kept all this in a room without windows. They had rat-proofed it by lining it with flattened tin cans. Smart. They were adored by the Germans, who thought they were exactly what Englishmen ought to be. They made war look stylish and reasonable and fun. So the Germans let them have 4 sheds, though 1 shed would have held them all. And in exchange for coffee or chocolate or tobacco, the Germans gave them paint and lumber and nails and cloths for fixing things up. The Englishmen had known for 12 hours that American guests were on the way. They had never had guests before, and they went to work like daring elves, sweeping, mopping, cooking, baking, making mattresses of straw and burlap bags, setting tables, putting party favors at each place. Now they were singing their welcome to their guests in the winter night. Their clothes were aromatic with the feast they had been preparing. They were dressed for They were dressed half for battle, half for tennis or croquet. They were so elated by their own hospitality and by all the goodies waiting inside that they did not take a good look at their guests while they sang. They imagined that they were singing to fellow officers fresh from the fray. They wrestled the Americans towards the shed door affectionately, filling the night with manly blather and brotherly rhodomontades. They called him Yank and told him good show. Promised that the promised them that Jerry was on the run and so on. Billy Pilgrim wondered dimly who Jerry was. Now he was indoors next to an iron cook stove that was glowing cherry red. Dozens of teapots were boiling there. Some of them had whistles. And there was a witch's cauldron full of golden soup. The soup was thick. Primeval bubbles surfaced it with lethargical majesty as... What? Primeval bubbles surfaced it with lethargical majesty as Billy Pilgrim stared. There were long tables set for a banquet. At each place was a bowl made from a can that had once contained powdered milk. A smaller can was a cup. A taller, more slender can was a tumbler. Each tumbler was filled with warm milk. At each table was a safety razor, a washcloth, a package of razor blades, a chocolate bar, 2 cigars, a bar of soap, 10 cigarettes, a book of matches, a pencil, and a candle. Only the candles and the soap were made of German origin. They had a ghostly, opalescent similarity. The British had no way of knowing it, but the candles and soap were made from the fat of rendered Jews and gypsies and fairies and communists and other enemies of the state. So it goes. The banquet hall was illuminated by candlelight. There were heaps of fresh-baked white bread on the tables, gobs of butter, pots of marmalade, and there were platters of sliced beef from cans. Soups and scrambled eggs and hot marmalade pie were yet to come. Bro, it's making me hungry. And at the far end of the shed, Billy saw pink arches with azure draperies hanging between them, and an enormous clock, and 2 golden thrones, and a bucket and a mop. It was in this setting that the evening's entertainment would take place. A musical version of Cinderella, the most popular story ever told. Billy Pilgrim was on fire, having stood too close to the glowing stove. The hem of his coat was burning. It was a quiet, patient sort of fire, like the burning of punk. Billy wondered if there was a telephone somewhere. He wanted to call his mother, to tell her he was alive and well. There was silence now, as the Englishmen looked in astonishment at the frowsy creatures they had so lustily waltzed inside. One of the Englishmen saw that Billy was on fire. How do you do a British accent? "You're on fire, lad!" I don't know. He said, and he got Billy away from the stove and beat out sparks with his hands. When Billy made no comment on this, the Englishman asked him, "Can you talk? Can you hear?" "Billy?" Billy nodded. The Englishman touched him exploratorily here and there, filled with pity. "My God, what have they done to you, lad? This isn't a man. It's a broken kite." "Are you really American? Are you really an American?" said the Englishman. "Yes." And your rank?" "Private." "What became of your boots, lad?" "I don't remember." "Is that coat a joke, sir? Where did you get such a thing?" Billy had to think hard about that. "They gave it to me," he said at last. "Jerry gave it to you." "Who? The Germans gave it to you?" "Yes." Billy didn't like the questions. They were fatiguing. "Oh, yank. Can I say that word, bro? I feel like I'm just fucking saying a slur or something." Said the Englishman. "That coat was an insult, sir. It was a deliberate attempt to humiliate you." "It's not a slur?" Fuck, oh shit. I just chanted it, bro. Okay. "You mustn't let Jerry do things like that." "Do things like that?" Billy Pilgrim swooned. Billy came to on a chair facing the stage. He had somehow eaten and now was watching Cinderella. Some some part of him had evidently been enjoying the performance for quite a while. Billy was laughing hard. The women on the play were really men, of course. The clock had just struck midnight and Cinderella was lamenting. Goodness me, the clock has struck. I like day and fuck my luck. Okay. Billy found... Sorry. Billy found the couplet so comical that he not only laughed, he shrieked. He went on shrieking until he was carried out of the shed and into another, where the hospital was. It was a 6-bed hospital. There weren't any other patients in there. Billy was put to bed and tied down and given a shot of morphine. Another American volunteered to watch over him. This volunteer was Edgar Derby, the high school teacher who would be shot to death in Dresden. So it goes. Derby sat on a 3-legged stool. He was given a book to read. The book was The Red Badge of Courage by Stephen Crane. Derby had read it before. Now he read it again while Billy Pilgrim entered a morphine paradise. Under morphine, Billy had a dream of giraffes in the garden. The giraffes were following gravel paths, were pausing to munch sugar pears from treetops. Billy was a giraffe too. Bruh. He ate a pear. It was a hard one. It fought back against his grinding teeth. It snapped in juicy protest. The giraffes accepted Billy as one of their own, as a harmless creature as preposterously specialized as themselves. Fuck! Two approached him from opposite sides, leaned against him. They had long, muscular upper lips which they could shape like the bells of buggles. They kissed him with these. They were female giraffes, cream and lemon yellow. They had horns like doorknobs. The doorknobs were covered with velvet. Why? Night came to the garden of the giraffes, and Billy Pilgrim slept without dreaming for a while. And then he traveled in time. He woke up with his head under a blanket in a ward for non-violent mental patients in a veterans hospital near Lake Placid, New York. It was springtime in 1948, 3 years after the end of the war. Billy uncovered his head. The windows of the ward were open. Birds were twittering outside. Poopy tweet. Poopy tweet. One asked him. The sun was high. There were 29 other patients assigned to the ward, but they were all outdoors now, enjoying the day. They were free to come and go as they pleased, to go home even if they like, and so was Billy Pilgrim. They had come here voluntarily, alarmed by the outside world. Billy had committed himself in the middle of his final year at the Ilium School of Optometry. Nobody else suspected that he was going crazy. Everybody else thought he looked fine and was acting fine. Now he was in the hospital. The doctors agreed he was going crazy. They didn't think it had anything to do with the war. They were sure Billy was going to pieces because his father had thrown him into the deep end of the YMCA swimming pool when he was a little boy, and had then taken him to the rim of the Grand Canyon. Bruh? The man assigned to the bed next to Billy's was a former infantry captain named Elliot Rosewater. Rosewater was sick and tired of being drunk all the time. It was Rosewater who introduced Billy into science fiction, and in particular the writings of Kilgore Trout. Rosewater had a tremendous collection of science fiction paperbacks under his bed. He had brought them to the hospital in a steamer trunk. Those beloved frumpish books gave off a smell that permeated the ward like flannel pajamas that hadn't been changed for a month, or like Irish stew. Kilgore Trout became Billy's favorite living author, and science fiction became the only sort of tales he could read. Rosewater was twice as smart as Billy, but he and Billy were dealing with similar crises in similar ways. They had both found life meaningless, partly because of what they had seen in war. Rosewater, for instance, had shot a 14-year-old fireman, mistaking him for a German soldier. So it goes. And Billy had seen the greatest massacre in European history, which was the firebombing of Dresden. So it goes. So they were trying to reinvent themselves and their universe. Science fiction was a big help. Rosewater said an interesting thing to Billy one time about a book that wasn't science fiction. Oh. He said that everything there was to know... Oh my god, Dostoevsky mentioned, what the hell? He said that everything there was to know about life was in the brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky. But that isn't enough anymore, said Rosewater. Another time, Billy heard Rosewater say to a psychiatrist, "I think you guys are going to have to come up with a lot of wonderful new lies, or people just aren't going to want to go on living." There was a still life. My gosh. Okay, let me hold on. Water. There was a still knife on Billy's bedside table. 2 pills, an ashtray with 3 lipstick-stained cigarettes on it. In it, 1 cigarette still burning, and a glass of water. The water was dead. So it goes. Air was trying to get out of that dead water. Bubbles were clinging to the walls of the glass, too weak to climb out. The cigarettes belonged to Billy's chain-smoking mother. She had sought the ladies' room, which was off the ward for WACS and WAVS. Should I be reading this? Wax and waves and spars and wafts. Who had gone bananas. She would be back at any moment now. Billy covered his head with his blanket again. He always covered his head when his mother came to see him in the mental ward. Always got much sicker until she went away. It wasn't that she was ugly or had bad breath or a bad personality. She was a perfectly nice, standard issue, brown-haired white woman with a high school education. She upset Billy simply by being his mother. She made him feel embarrassed and ungrateful and weak because she had gone to so much trouble to give him life. To keep that... Bruh, what the fuck? That was, again, burp and fucking hiccup that hurt me. She made him feel embarrassed and ungrateful and weak because she had gone to so much trouble to give him life and to keep that life going, and Billy didn't really like life at all. Billy heard Elliot Rosewater come in and lie down. Rosewater's bed springs talked a lot about that. Rosewater was a big man, but not very powerful. He looked as though he might be He looked as though he might be made out of nose putty. And then Billy's mother came back from the ladies' room, sat down on a chair between Billy's and Rosewater's bed. Rosewater greeted her with a melodious warmth, asked how she was today. He seemed delighted to hear that she was fine. He was experimenting with being ardently sympathetic with everybody he met. He thought that might make a world a slightly more pleasant place to live in. He called Billy's mother dear. He was experimenting with calling everybody dear. Someday, she promised Rosewater, I'm going to come in here and Billy is going to uncover his head And do you know what he's going to say? What's he going to say, dear? He's going to say, "Hello, Mom." And he's going to smile. He's going to say, "Gee, it's good to see you, Mom. How have you been? Today could be the day. Every night I pray." That's a good thing to do. People would be People would be surprised if they knew how much in this world was due to prayers. You never you never said a truer word, dear. Does your mother come to see you often? My mother is dead, said Rosewater. So it goes. I'm sorry. At least she had a happy life as long as it lasted. That's a consolation anyway. Yes. Billy's father is dead, you know, said Billy's mother. So it goes. A boy needs a father. And on it went. That duet between the dumb praying lady and the big hollow man who was so full of loving echoes. Loving echoes. He was at the top of his class when this happened, said Billy's mother. Maybe he was working too hard, said Rosewater. He held a book he wanted to read, but he was much too polite to read and talk too. Easy as it was to give Billy's mother satisfactory answers. The book was Maniacs in the Fourth Dimension by Kilgore Trout. It was about people whose mental diseases couldn't be treated because the causes of the diseases were all in the fourth dimension. And the three-dimensional earthling doctors couldn't see those causes at all, or even imagine them. One thing Trout said that Rosewater liked very much was that there really were vampires and werewolves and goblins and angels and so on, but that they were in the fourth dimension. So was William Blake, Rosewater's favorite poet, according to Trout. So were heaven and hell. He's engaged to a very rich girl, said Billy's mother. That's good, said Rosewater. Money can be a great comfort sometimes. It really can. Of course it can. It isn't much fun if you have to pinch every penny till it screams. It's nice to have a little breathing room. Her father owns the optometry school where Billy was going. He also owns 6 offices around our part of the state. He flies his own plane and has a summer place up on Lake George. That's a beautiful lake. Billy fell asleep under his blanket. When he woke up again, he was tied to the bed in the hospital back in the prison. He opened one eye, saw poor Edgar Derby reading The Red Badge of Courage by candlelight. Billy closed that one eye, saw in his memory of the future poor Edgar Derby in front of a firing squad in the ruins of Dresden. There were only 4 men in that squad. Billy heard that one man in each firing squad was customarily given a rifle loaded with a blank cartridge. Billy didn't think there would be a blank cartridge issued in a squad that small, in a war that old. Now the head Englishman came into the hospital to check on Billy. He was an infantry colonel captured at Dunkirk. It was he who had given Billy morphine. There wasn't a real doctor in the compound, so doctoring was up to him. How's the patient? He asked Derby. Dead to the world. But not actually dead. No. How nice. To feel nothing. And still get full credit for being alive. Derby now came lugubrious. What? Lugubrious. Derby now came to lugubrious attention. No, please, as you were. With only 2 men for each officer, and all the men sick, I think we can do without the usual pageantry between officers and men. Derby remained standing. You seem older than the rest, said the colonel. Derby told him he was 45, which was 2 years older than the colonel. The colonel said that the Americans had all shaved now, that Billy and Derby were the only... And Billy and Derby were still the only two with beards. And he said, "You know, we've had to imagine the war here. And we have imagined that it was being fought by aging men like ourselves. We had forgotten that wars were fought by babies. When I saw those freshly shaved faces, it was a shock. My God, I said to myself, it's the children's crusade." The colonel asked old Derby how he had been captured, and Derby told a tale of being in a clump of trees with about 100 other frightened soldiers. The battle had been going on for 5 days. The 100 had been driven into the trees by tanks. Derby described the incredible artificial weather that Earthlings sometimes create for other Earthlings when they don't want those other Earthlings, to inhabit the Earth anymore. Shells were bursting in the treetops with terrific bangs. He said, showering down knives and needles and razor blades. Little lumps of lead and copper jackets were crisscrossing the woods under the shell bursts, zipping along much faster than sound. A lot of people were being wounded or killed. So it goes. Then the shelling stopped, and a hidden German with a loudspeaker told the Americans to put their weapons down and come out of the woods with their hands on the top of their heads, or the shelling would start again. It wouldn't stop until everybody in there was dead. So the Americans put their weapons down and came out of the woods with their hands on the top of their heads, because they wanted to go on living, if they possibly could. Billy traveled in time back to the veterans' hospital again. The blanket was over his head. It was quiet outside the blanket. "Is my mother gone?" said Billy. "Yes." Billy peeked out from under his blanket. His fiancée was out there now, sitting on the visitor's chair. Her name was Valencia Marble. Valencia was the daughter of the owner of Valencia was the daughter of the owner of the Ilium School of Optometry. She was rich. She was as big as a house because she couldn't stop eating. She was eating now. She was eating a Three Musketeers candy bar. She was wearing trifocal lenses and harlequin frames, and the frames were trimmed with rhinestones. The glitter of the rhinestones was answered by the glitter of the diamond in her engagement ring. The diamond was insured for $1,800. Billy had found that diamond in Germany. It was booty of war. Billy didn't want to marry ugly Valencia. She was one of the symptoms of his disease. He knew he was going crazy when he heard himself proposing marriage to her. When he begged her to take the diamond ring and to be his companion for life. Billy said hello to her, and she asked him if he wanted some candy. He said, "No thanks." She asked him how he was, and he said, "Much better, thanks." She said that everybody at the optometry school was sorry he was sick and hoped he would be well soon, and Billy said, "Well, when you see him, tell him hello." She promised he would. She asked him if there was anything she could bring him from the outside, and he said, "No, I have just about everything I want." "What about books?" said Valencia. "I'm right next to one of the biggest private libraries in the world," said Billy, meaning Elliot Rosewater's collection of science fiction. Rosewater was on the next bed, reading, and Billy drew him into the conversation, asking him what he was reading this time. Rosewater told him. It was the Gospel from Outer Space by Kilgore Trout. It was about a visitor from outer space, shaped very much like a Tralformadorian, by the way. The visitor came from outer space. The visitor came from outer space, made a serious study of Christianity to learn, if he could, why Christians found it so easy to be cruel. He concluded that at least a part of the trouble was slipshod storytelling in the New Testament. He supposed that the intent of the Gospels was to teach people, among other things, to be merciful, even to the lowest of the low. But the Gospels actually taught this. Before you kill somebody, make absolutely sure he isn't well connected. So it goes. The flaw in Christ's stories, said the visitor from outer space, was that Christ, who didn't look like much, was actually the son of the most powerful being in the universe. Readers understood that, so when they came to the crucifixion, they naturally thought, and Rosewater read aloud again, "Oh boy, they sure picked the wrong guy to lynch that time." And that thought had a brother. There are right people to lynch. Who? People not well connected. So it goes. The visitor from outer space made a gift to Earth of a new gospel. In it, Jesus really was a nobody, and a pain in the neck to a lot of people with better connections than he had. He still got to say all the lovely and puzzling things he said in other gospels. So the people amused themselves one day by nailing him to a cross and planting a cross on the ground. There couldn't possibly be any repercussions, the lynchers thought. The reader would have to think that too, since the new gospel hammered home again and again that what a nobody Jesus was. And then, just before the nobody died, the heavens opened up, and there was thunder and lightning. The voice of God came crashing down. He told the people that he was adopting the bum as his son, giving him the giving him the full powers and privileges of the Son of the Creator of the universe throughout all eternity. God said this: from this moment on, he will punish horribly anybody who torments a bum who was no connections. Billy's fiancée had finished her Three Musketeers candy bar. Now she was eating a Milky Way. A what? A Milky Way. Forget books, said Rosewater, throwing that particular book under his bed. The hell with him. That sounded like an interesting one, said Valencia. Jesus, if Kilgore Trout could only write, Rosewater exclaimed. He had a point. Kilgore Trout's unpopularity was deserved. His prose was frightful, only his ideas were good. I don't think Trout has ever been out of the country, Rosewater went on. My God, he writes about Earthlings all the time, and they're all Americans. Practically nobody on Earth is an American. Where does he live? Valencia asked. Nobody knows, Rosewater replied. I'm the only person who's ever heard of him, as far as I can tell. No two books have the same publisher, and every time I write him in care of a publisher, the letter comes back because the publisher has failed. Oh. He changed the subject now, congratulated Valencia on her engagement ring. Thank you, she said, and held it out so Rosewater could get a close look. Billy got that diamond in the war. That's the attractive thing about war, said Rosewater. Absolutely everybody gets a little something. With regard to the whereabouts of Kilgore Trout, he actually lived in Ilium, Billy's hometown, friendless and despised. Billy would meet him by the by. Billy, said Valencia Merble. You want to talk about our silver pattern? Sure. I've got it narrowed down pretty much to either Royal, Danish, or Rambler Rose. Rambler Rose, said Billy. It isn't something we should rush into, she said. I mean, whatever we decide on, that's what we're going to have. That's what we're going to live with the rest of our lives. Billy studied the pictures. Royal Danish, he said at last. Colonial moonlight is nice too. Yes, it is, said Billy Pilgrim. And Billy traveled in time to the zoo on Tralfamadore. He was 44 years old, on display under a geodesic dome. He was reclining on a lounge chair, which had been his cradle during his trip through space. He was naked. The Tralfamadorians were interested in his body. All of it. There were thousands of them outside, holding up their little hands so that they could see him. Billy had been on Tralfamadore for 6 Earthling months now. He was used to the crowd. Escape was out of the question. The atmosphere outside the dome was cyanide, and Earth was blah 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 miles away. Billy was displayed there in the zoo in a simulated Earthling habitat. Most of the furnishings had been stolen from the Sears Roebuck warehouse in Iowa City, Iowa. There was a color television set and a couch that could be converted into a bed. There were end tables with lamps and ashtrays on them by the couch. There was a home bar with two stools. There was a little pool table. There was a wall-to-wall carpeting in federal gold, except in the kitchen and the bathroom areas over the iron manhole cover in the center of the floor. There were magazines arranged in a fan on the coffee table in front of the couch. There was a stereographic phonograph. The phonograph worked. The television didn't. There was a picture of one cowboy killing another one, pasted on the television tube. So it goes. There were no walls in the dome, no place for Billy to hide. The mint green bathroom fixtures were right out in the open. Billy got off his lounge chair now, went into the bathroom and took a leak. The crowd went wild. Billy brushed his teeth on Tralfamador, put in his partial denture, and went into his kitchen. His bottled gas range and his refrigerator and his dishwasher were mint green too. There was a picture painted on the door of the refrigerator. The refrigerator had come that way. It was a picture of a gay 90s couple on a bicycle built for two. Billy looked at the picture now, tried to think something about the couple. Nothing came to him. There didn't seem to be anything about those two people. Billy ate a good breakfast from cans. He washed his cup and plate and knife and fork and spoon and saucepan. Put them away. Then he did exercises that he learned in the army. Straddle jumps, deep knee bends, sit-ups and push-ups. Most Tralfamadorians had no way of knowing Billy's body and face were not beautiful. What? Most Tralfamadorians had no way of knowing Billy's body and face were not beautiful. They supposed that he was a splendid specimen. This had a pleasant effect on Billy, who began to enjoy his body for the first time. What? He showered after his exercises and trimmed his toenails. He shaved and sprayed deodorant under his arms, while a zoo guide on a raised platform outside explained what Billy was doing and why. The guide was lecturing telepathically, simply standing there, sending out thought waves to the crowd. On the platform with him was a little keyboard instrument with which he would relay questions to Billy from the crowd. Now the first question came from the speaker on the television set. Are you happy here? I'm about as happy as I was on Earth, said Billy Pilgrim, which was true. There were 5 sexes on Tralfamador, each of them performing a step necessary in the creation of a new individual. They looked identical to Billy because of their sex difference. Because their sex differences were all in the 4th dimension. One of the biggest moral bombshells handed to Billy by the Tralfamadorians incidentally had to do with sex on Earth. They said their flying saucer crews had identified no fewer than 7 sexes on Earth, each essential to reproduction. Again, Billy couldn't possibly imagine what 5 of those 7 sexes had to do with the making of a baby, since they were sexually active only in the 4th dimension. The Tralfamadorians tried to give Billy clues that would help him imagine sex in the invisible dimension. They told him that there could be no Earthling babies without male homosexuals. There could be babies without female homosexuals. There couldn't be babies without women over 60... What? There couldn't be babies without women over 65 years old. There could be babies without men over 65. There couldn't be babies without other babies who had lived an hour or so or less after birth. And so on. It was gibberish to Billy. There was a lot that Billy had There was a lot that Billy said that was gibberish to the Tralfomordorians too. They couldn't imagine what time looked like to him. Billy had given up on explaining that. The guide outside had to explain as best as he could. As best he could. Bruh. The guide invited the crowd to imagine that they were looking across a desert at a mountain range on a day that was twinkling bright and clear. They could look at a peak, or at a bird, or at a cloud, at a stone right in front of them, or even down into a canyon behind them. Among them was this poor earthling, and his head was encased in a steel sphere, which he could never take off. There was only one eye hole through which he could look, and welded to that eye hole were 6 feet of pipe. This was only the beginning of Billy's miseries in the metaphor. He was also strapped to a steel lattice, which was bolted to a flat car on rails. There was no way which he could turn his head or touch the pipe. The far end of the pipe was rested on a bipod, which was also bolted to the flat car. All Billy could see was the little dot on the end of the pipe. He didn't know he was on the flat car. He didn't even know there was anything peculiar about his situation. The flat car sometimes crept, sometimes went extremely fast, often stopped, went uphill, downhill, around curves, along straightways. Poor Billy saw through the pipe. Whatever poor Billy saw through the pipe, he had no choice but to say to himself, "That's life." Billy expected the Tralfomordorians to be baffled and alarmed by all the wars and other forms of murder on Earth. He expected them to fear that the Earthling combination of ferocity and spectacular weaponry might eventually destroy part, or maybe all of the innocent universe. Science fiction had led him to expect that. But the subject of war never came up until Billy brought it up himself. Somebody in the zoo asked him through the lecturer what the most valuable thing he had learned on Tralfomordor was so far, and Billy replied, "How the inhabitants of a whole planet can live in peace. As you know, I am from a planet that has been engaged in senseless slaughter since the beginning of time. I myself had seen the bodies of schoolgirls who were boiled alive in a water tower by my own countrymen, who were proud of fighting pure evil at the time." This was true. Oh. Billy saw the bodies in Dresden. Billy saw the boiled bodies in Dresden. "And I have lit my way in the prison at night with the candles from the fat of human beings who were butchered by the brothers and fathers of those schoolgirls who were boiled. Earthlings must be the terrors of the universe. Of other planets aren't now in danger if the other planets aren't now in danger from Earth, they will soon be. So tell me the secret so I can take it back to Earth and save us all. How can a planet live at peace?" This is a long chapter. Billy felt that he had spoken soaringly. He was baffled when he saw the Tralfomordors close their little hands on their eyes, but he knew from past experience what this meant. He was being stupid. Would you mind telling me?" he said to the guide, much deflated. "What was so stupid about that?" "We know how the universe ends," said the guide, "and Earth has nothing to do with it except that it gets wiped out too." How? How does the universe end?" "We blow it up, experimenting with new fuels for our flying saucers. A Tralfomordorian test pilot presses a starter button, and the whole universe disappears. So it goes." "If you know this," said Billy, "isn't there some way you can prevent it? Can't you keep the pilot from pressing the button?" He has always pressed it, and he always will. We always let him, and and we always will let him. I'm gonna read that again because that feels like a banger. He has always pressed it, and he always will. We always let him, and we always will let him. The moment is structured that way. So, said Billy gropingly, I suppose that the idea of preventing war on Earth is stupid too. Of course. Wait, I should be saying it like that. Of course. But you do have a peaceful planet here. Today we do. On other days we have wars as horrible as any you've ever seen or read about. There isn't anything we can do about them, so we simply don't look at them. We ignore them. We spend eternity looking at pleasant moments, like today at the zoo. Isn't this a nice moment? Yes. That's one thing Earthlings might learn to do. If they tried hard enough, ignore the awful times and concentrate on the good ones. Forgot that was the voice I gave them. Said Billy Pilgrim. Shortly after he went to sleep that night, Billy traveled in time to another moment, which was quite nice. His wedding night with former Valencia Marble. He had been out of the Veterans Hospital for 6 months. All was well. He had graduated from the Ilium School of Optometry, third in his class of 47. Now he was in bed with Valencia in a delightful studio apartment which was built on the end of the wharf on Cape Ann, Massachusetts. Across the water were the lights of Gloucester. Billy was on top of Valencia, making love to her. I don't need that mental image, actually. One result of this act would be the rebirth of Robert Pilgrim. What? Okay. Who would become a problem in high school, but would then straighten out as a member of the famous Green Berets. Valencia was not a time traveler, but she did have a lively imagination. While Billy was making love to her, she imagined that she was a famous woman in history. She was being Queen Elizabeth of the First England, and Billy was supposedly Christopher Columbus. What? Billy made a noise like a small rusty hinge. Billy made a noise like a small rusty hinge. He had just emptied his seminal vesicles into He had contributed his share of the Green Beret. I can't, I'm dead. Oh my god. Seminal vesicles. According to the Tralfomodorians, of course, the Green Beret would have 7 parents in all. Now he rolled off his huge wife, whose rapt expression did not change when he departed. He lay with the buttons of his spine along the edge of the mattress, folded his hands behind his head. He was rich now. He was rewarded for marrying a girl nobody in his right mind would have married. His father-in-law had given him a new Buick Roadmaster, an all-electric home, and had made him manager of his most prosperous office. His Ilium office, where Billy could expect to make at least $30,000 a year. That was good. His father had only been a barber. His mother said, "The Pilgrims are coming up in the world." Fucking hell. The honeymoon was taking place in the bittersweet mysteries of Indian summer in New England. The lovers' apartment had one romantic wall, which was all French doors. They opened onto a balcony and the oily harbor beyond. A green and orange dragger, black in the night, grumbled and drummed past their balcony, not 30 feet from their wedding bed. it was going to sea with only its running lights on. Its empty holds were resonant, made the song of engines rich and loud. The wharf began to sing the same song, and then the honeymooners' headboard sang too. Bruh. Sorry. I swear, I swear that's a tick whenever I hiccup. I'm sorry. And it continued to sing along after the dragger was gone. Thank you, said Valencia at last. The headboard was singing a mosquito song. I need to go pee, bro. This chapter's so weird. I'll be right back. Hold on. For a fucked up individual like me, this chapter is quite normal. Sorry, I'm not that fucked up, okay? You said bruh every single time after hiccuping. I don't know. I don't know. Also, thank you for the 125 straight stream streak, Mel. Man, I didn't expect this chapter to be so long. Holy god, 3 hours. Well, to be fair, I was yapping for the first, like, what, 2 or something? Thank you for the hydrate. Piss kid, thank you. I was gonna say, thank you, shit guy, but it was kind of mean, so I held back. But I told you anyway, so I don't know why I held back. Anyways, fucking... I don't know why I still try to be nice to you. Halfway through this chapter, that's crazy. But I will accept Billy's lifestyle. I cannot wait to hear more of his sex life. I'm not interested. But, I mean, I'll read it, I guess. Halfway is kind of crazy. Yeah, BRB is still on the screen because... Still gonna drink water, hold on. What does it truly mean to be a shit guy? I don't know. Hi, Tador! No bullying. Damn. Well, yes. I basically didn't understand anything. It's okay, Nick. I'm honestly surprised you're still here. I thought you were studying, Nick. This is an insanely long chapter. Okay. Yeah, we've been reading for 1 hour and 46 minutes now. Holy moly. You can switch to art? No, it's fine. We'll finish this I still mean it when I say I want to finish chapter 5 today. But it might be all that we're doing today. Considering so much different things happen. Yeah, he gets married, he gets captured, and then he gets injected with morphine. 4-hour chapter. More like 2 or something. 3, maybe. An hour and 46. Let's say an hour and 40 because I took a pee break. And yap break. I need to know about Billy's sex life. No, I don't want to know. What the fuck? Okay. Continue. Continue. Where were we? Thank you, said Valencia at last. The headboard was singing a mosquito song. You're welcome. It was nice. Then she began to cry. What's the matter? I'm so happy. Good. I never thought anyone would marry me. Said Billy Pilgrim. Holy. What the hell? I'm going to lose weight for you, he said. I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to become beautiful for you. I like you just the way you are. Do you really? Really? Said Billy Pilgrim. He had already seen a lot of their marriage, thanks to time travel. Knew that it was going to be at least bearable all the way. Fuck, if anybody said that to me, dude, I was like, I'm so glad you married me. I didn't think anybody would love me enough to marry me. And then my husband goes, it's over! I'm killing myself on the spot, bro. Holy shit. Also, hi Flair. Sorry. I don't usually yap while I'm reading, but this chapter is just okay, I'm wiping my glasses. Brazilian shower time, exactly. Wiping my glasses. It is too much, yeah. Phew. Okay. We're so back. Only it's a book reaction stream, but I don't narrate. I just go, what the fuck? And oh my god. The whole time. A great moto killed me. A great motor yacht named Shrarara now slid past the marriage bed. The song its engine sang was a very low organ note. All her lights were on. Two beautiful people, a young man and a young woman in evening clothes, were at the rail in the stern, loving each other. Loving each other and their dreams and the lake. They were honeymooning too. They were Lance Rumford of Newport, Rhode Island, and his bride, former Cynthia Landry, who had been a childhood sweetheart of John F. Kennedy in Hyannisport, Massachusetts. There was a slight coincidence here. Billy Pilgrim would later share a hospital room with Rumford's uncle, Professor Bertram Copeland Rumford. What? Professor Bertram Copeland Rumford of Harvard, official historian of the United States Air Force. When the beautiful people were past, Valencia questioned her funny-looking husband about the war. It was a simple-minded thing for a female Earthling to do, to associate sex and glamour with war. Do you ever think about the war? She said, laying a hand on his thigh. Sometimes, said Billy Pilgrim. I look at you sometimes, said Valencia, and I get a funny feeling that you're just full of secrets. I'm not, said Billy. This was a lie, of course. He hadn't told anybody about all the time traveling he'd done, about Chalfomodor and so on. You must have secrets about the war, or not secrets, I guess, but things you don't want to talk about. No. I'm proud you were a soldier. Do you know that? Good. Was it awful? Sometimes. A crazy thought now occurred to Billy. Oh god, here we go. The truth of it startled him. It would make a good epitaph for Billy Pilgrim, and for me, too. Would you talk about the war now, if you wanted to? Said Valencia. In a tiny cavity in her great body was some... What? Oh my god. Okay. I don't want to read that. I don't know why. In a tiny cavity in her great body was assembling the materials for a green beret. Like, why? Like, I don't need to know that. It would sound like a dream, said Billy. Other people's dreams aren't very interesting, usually. I'll just take a picture. Okay. What is it? What the fuck? Scan it? Thanks. The fuck? Sabi kuya. Sorry. It was my older brother. He was asking me to take a photo of something. It's weird. Okay. Mom. She wants to read No Longer Human after this. I'm sorry. If you guys have any other suggestions, I mean, No Longer Human is like way back in my list. Okay. It would sound like a dream, said Billy. Other people's dreams aren't very interesting usually. I heard you tell father one time about a German firing squad. She was referring to the execution of poor old Edgar Derby. What the fuck? You had to bury him? Yes. Did he see you with your shovels before he was shot? Yes. Everything was beautiful and nothing hurt. I need to get this tattooed. Right now. That's me, by the way, bro. I need to get this little sheriff tattooed. Right fucking now. I took a screenshot. That's so silly. Did he say anything? No. Was he scared? They had him doped up. He was sort of glassy-eyed. And they pinned a target up to him. A piece of paper, said Billy. He got out of bed, said, "Excuse me," went into the darkness of the bathroom to take a leak. He groped for a light, realized as he felt the rough walls that he traveled back to 1944, to the prison hospital again. Get tattooed. I would get it tattooed at my behind my elbow or something. The cherub specifically. I want the cherub. The candle in the hospital had gone out. Poor old Edgar Derby had fallen asleep on the cot next to Billy's. Billy was out of bed, groping along a wall, trying to find a way out because he had to take a leak so badly. He suddenly found a door which opened, let him reel out into the prison light. Billy was loony with time travel and morphine. He delivered himself into a barbed wire fence which snagged him in a dozen places. Billy tried to back away from it, but the barbs wouldn't let him go. So Billy did a silly little dance with the fence, taking a step this way, then that way, then returning to the beginning again. A Russian, himself out in the night to take a leak, saw Billy dancing from the other side of the fence. He came over to the curious scarecrow, tried to talk with it gently, asked what country it was from. The scarecrow paid no attention, went on dancing. So the Russian undid the snags one by one, and the scarecrow danced off into the night again without a word of thanks. The Russian waved to him and called after him in Russian, "Goodbye." Billy took his pecker out. Okay. Billy took his pecker out, there in the prison night, and peed on the ground. Then he put it away again, more or less, and contemplated a new problem. Where had he come from? And where should he go now? Somewhere in the night, there were cries of grief. With nothing better to do, Billy shuffled in their direction. He wondered what tragedy so many had found to lament out of doors. Billy was approaching, without knowing it, the bank of the latrine. It consisted of a one-rail fence with 12 buckets underneath it. The fence was sheltered on 3 sides by a screen of scrap lumber and flattened tin cans. The open side faced the black tar paper wall. What? The open side of the open side faced the black tar paper wall of the shed where the feast had taken place. What the fuck? Billy moved along the screen and reached a point where he could see a message freshly painted on the tar paper wall. The words were written with the same pink paint which had brightened the set for Cinderella. Billy's perceptions were so unreliable that he saw the words hanging in the air, painted on a transparent curtain, perhaps. And there were lovely silver dots on the curtain too. These were really nailheads holding the tar paper to the shed. Billy could not imagine how the curtain was supported with nothingness, and he supposed that the magic curtain and the theatrical grief were part of some religious ceremony he knew nothing about. Here's what the message said. "Please leave this latrine as tidy as you found it." Billy looked inside the latrine, wailing. The wailing was coming from in there. The place was crammed with Americans who had taken their pants down. The welcome feast had made them as sick as volcanoes. The buckets were full or had been kicked over. An American near Billy wailed that he had excreted everything but his brains. Moments later he said, "There they go. There they go." He meant his brains. That was I. That was me. That was the author of this book. What? Billy, what? Billy reeled away from his vision of hell. He passed 3 Englishmen who were watching the excrement festival from a distance. They were catatonic with disgust. "Button your pants," said one as Billy went by. So Billy buttoned his pants. He came to the door of the little hospital by accident. He went through the door and found himself honeymooning again, going from the bathroom back to the bed with his bride on Cape Ann. "I missed you," said Valencia. "I missed you," said Billy Pilgrim. Billy and Valencia went to sleep nestled like spoons, and Billy traveled in time back to the train he had taken in 1944. From maneuvers in South Carolina to his father's funeral in Ilium. He hadn't seen Europe or combat yet. This was still 3 days. This was still in the days of steam locomotives. Billy had to change trains a lot. All the trains were slow. The coaches stunk of coal smoke and rationed tobacco and rationed booze and the farts of people eating wartime food. The upholstery of the iron seats were bristly, and Billy couldn't sleep much. He got to sleep soundly when he was only 3 hours from Ilium, with his legs splayed toward the entrance of the busy dining car. The porter woke him up when the train reached Ilium. Billy staggered off with his duffel bag. And then he stood on the station platform next to the porter, trying to wake up. "Have a good nap, did you?" said the porter. "Yes," said Billy. "Man," said the porter, "you sure had a hard on." What the fuck? Why were you looking, porter? Why were you looking there? I guess. At 3 in the morning on Billy's morphine night in prison, a new patient was carried into the hospital by two lusty Englishmen. He was tiny. He was Paul Lazaro, the polka-dotted car thief from Cicero, Illinois. He had been caught stealing cigarettes from under a pillow of an Englishman, and the Englishman, half asleep, had broken Lazaro's right arm and knocked him unconscious. Fuck! The Englishman who had done this was helping to carry Lazaro now. He had fiery red hair and no eyebrows. He had been Cinderella's blue fairy godmother in the play. Now he supported his half of Lazaro with one hand while he closed the door behind him with the other. "Don't weigh as much as a chicken," he said. The Englishman with Lazaro's feet and the colonel who had given him was... What? Again? The Englishman with Lazaro's feet was the colonel who had given Billy his knockout shot. The blue fairy godmother was embarrassed and angry, too. "If I'd known I was fighting a chicken," he said, "I wouldn't have fought so hard." The blue fairy godmother spoke frankly about how disgusting all the Americans were. "Weak, smelly, self-pitying, a pack of sniveling, dirty, thieving bastards," he said. "They're worse than the bleeding Russians." Do seem a scruffy lot," the colonel agreed. A German major came in now. He considered the Englishmen as close friends. He visited them nearly every day, played games with them, lectured them on German history, played their piano, gave them lessons in conversational German. He told them often that if it weren't for their civilized company, he would go mad. His English was splendid. He was apologetic about the Englishmen's having to put up with the American enlisted men. He promised them that they would not be inconvenienced for more than a day or two, that the Americans would soon be shipped to Dresden as contract labor. He had a monograph with him, published by the German Association of Prison Officials. It was a report on the behavior in Germany of American enlisted men as prisoners of war. It was written by a former American who had risen high in the German Ministry of Propaganda. His name was Howard W. Campbell, Jr. He would later hang himself while awaiting trial as a war criminal. So it goes. Man, how long is this fucking book? Or this chapter? We're almost done. Holy moly. Oh, no. Holy god. Okay, like 7 more pages or something. While the British colonel set Lazaro's broken arm and mixed plaster for the cast, the German major translated out loud passages from Howard W. Campbell Jr.'s monograph. Campbell had been a fairly well-known playwright at one time. His opening line was this one: "America is the wealthiest nation on earth, but its people are mainly poor, and poor Americans are urged to hate themselves." To quote the American humorist Ken Hubbard, "It ain't no disgrace to be poor, but it might as well be." It is in fact a crime for an American to be poor, even though America is a nation of poor. Every other nation has folk, traditions of men who were poor but extremely wise and virtuous, and therefore more estimable than anyone with power and gold. No such tales are told by the American poor. They mock themselves and glorify their betters. The meanest eating or drinking establishment owned by a man who is himself poor is very likely to have a sign on its walls asking this cruel question: "If you're so smart, why ain't you rich?" There will also be an American flag no larger than a child's hand, glued to a lollipop stick, and flying from the cashier register. The author of the monograph, a native of Cincinnati, New York, was said by some to have the highest IQ of all the war criminals who were made to face death by hanging. So it goes. Americans, like human beings everywhere, believe many things that are obviously untrue, the monograph went on. Their most destructive untruth is that it is very easy for any American to make money. They will not acknowledge how, in fact, hard money is to come by, and therefore, those who have no money blame and blame and blame themselves. This inward blame has been a treasure for the rich and the powerful, who have had to do less for their poor, publicly and privately, than any other ruling class since, say, Napoleonic times. Many novelties have come from America. The most startling of these, a thing without precedent, is a mass of undignified poor. They do not love one another because they do not love themselves. Once this is understood, the disagreeable behavior of American enlisted men in German prisons ceases to be a mystery. Howard W. Campbell Jr. now discussed the uniform of the American enlisted in World War II. Every other army in history, prosperous or not, has attempted to clothe even its lowliest soldiers so as to make them impressive to themselves and others as stylish experts in drinking and copulation and looting and sudden death. The American army, however, sends its enlisted men out to fight and die in a modified business suit, quite evidently made for another man. A sterilized but unpressed gift from a nose-holding charity which passes out clothing to drunks in the slums. When a dashingly clad officer addresses a frumpishly dressed bum, he scolds him, as an officer in any army must. But the officer's contempt is not, as in any other armies, avuncular, theatrically. What? Something. It is a genuine expression of hatred for poor, who have no one to blame for their misery but themselves. A prison administrator dealing with captured American enlisted men for the first time should be warned. Expect no brotherly love, even between brothers. There will be no cohesion between the individuals. Each will be a sulky child who often wishes they were dead. He were dead. Campbell told what the German experience with captured American enlisted men had been. They were known everywhere to be the most self-pitying, least fraternal, and dirtiest of all prisoners of war, said Campbell. They were incapable of concerted action on their own behalf. They despised any leader from among their own number, refused to follow or even listen to him, on the grounds that he was no better than they were, that they should stop putting on airs, and so on. Billy Pilgrim went to sleep, woke up as a widower in his empty home in Ilium. His daughter Barbara was reproaching him for writing ridiculous letters to the newspapers. "Did you hear what I said?" Barbara inquired. It was 1968 again. Of course, he had been dozing. "If you're going to act like a child, maybe we'll just have to treat you like a child." "That isn't what happens next," said Billy. "We'll see what happens next." Big Barbara now embraced herself. "It's awfully cold in here. Is the heat on?" "The heat? The furnace. The thing in the basement. The thing that makes the hot air come out of these registers. I don't think it's working." "Maybe not." "Aren't you cold?" "I hadn't noticed." "Oh my god, you are a child. If we leave you alone here, you'll freeze to death. You'll starve to death." And so on. It was very exciting for her, taking his dignity away in the name of love. What? Barbara called the oil burner man, and she made Billy go to bed. Made him promise to stay under the electric blanket until the heat came on. She set the control of the blanket at the highest notch, which soon made Billy's bed go hot enough to bake a bread in. When Barbara left, slamming the door behind her, Billy traveled in time to the zoo in Tralfamadore again. A mate had just been brought to him from Earth. She was Montana Wildhack, a motion picture star. Montana was under heavy sedation. Tralfamadorians wearing gas masks brought her in, put her in Billy's yellow lounge chair, withdrew through his airlock. The vast crowd outside was delighted. All attendance records for the zoo were broken. Everybody on the planet wanted to see the Earthling's mate. Montana was naked, and so was Billy, of course. He had a tremendous wang, incidentally. You never know who'll get one. What? Now she fluttered her eyelids. Her lashes were like buggy wisps. Where am I? She said. Everything's alright, said Billy gently. Please don't be afraid. Montana had been unconscious during her trip from Earth. The Tralfamadorians hadn't talked to her, hadn't shown themselves to her. The last thing she remembered was stunning herself by a swimming pool in Palm Springs, California. California. Montana was only 20 years old. Around her neck was a silver chain with a heart-shaped locket hanging from it, between her breasts. Now she turned her head to see the myriads of Tralfamadorians outside the dome. They were applauding her by opening and closing their little hands quickly. Montana screamed and screamed. The little green hands closed tight because Montana's terror was so unpleasant to see. The head zookeeper ordered a crane operator, who was standing by, to drop a heavy blue canopy over the dome, thus simulating Earthling night inside. Real night came to the zoo for only one Earthling hour out of every 62. Billy switched on the floor lamp. The light from the single source threw a baroque detailing of Montana's body into sharp relief. Billy was reminded of fantastic architecture in Dresden before it was bombed. What? In time, Montana came to love and trust Billy Pilgrim. He did not touch her until she made it clear that she wanted him to. After she had been on Tralfamadore for what would have been an Earthling week, she asked him shyly if he wouldn't sleep with her, which he did. It was heavenly. And Billy traveled in time from that delightful bed to a bed in 1968. It was his bed in Ilium, and the electric blanket was turned up high. He was drenched in sweat, remembered groggily that his daughter put him to bed, and told him to stay there until the oil burner was repaired. Somebody was knocking on his door. Yes, said Billy. Oil burner man? Yes. Bruh, it's running good now. Heat's coming up. Good. Mouse ate through a wire from the thermostat. I'll be darned. Billy sniffed. His hotbed smelled like a mushroom cellar. He had had a wet dream about Montana Wildhack. Bruh. On the morning after that wet dream, Billy decided to go back to work in his office in the shopping plaza. Business was booming as usual. His assistants were keeping up with it nicely. They were startled to see him. They had been told by his daughter that he might never practice again. But Billy went into his examining room briskly, asked that the first patient to be sent in. So they sent him one, a 12-year-old boy who was accompanied by his widowed mother. They were strangers, new in town. Billy asked them a little about themselves, learned that the boy's father had been killed in Vietnam. In the famous five-day battle for Hill 875 near Dak To. So it goes. While he examined the boy's eyes, Billy told him matter-of-factly about his adventures of Tralfamadore, assured the fatherless boy that his father was very much still alive in moments the boy would see him again and again. Isn't that comforting? Billy asked. And somewhere in there, the boy's mother went out and told the receptionist that Billy was evidently going crazy. Billy was taken home. His daughter asked him again, Father, Father, what are we going to do with you? We're fucking done. Holy goddamn fucking 4 hour. 2 hour reading, by the way. And so it fucking goes. And thank God for that. You can show the drawing on Twitch, right? What drawing? It was terrible for him. I know, right? Phew! Well, I'm glad it's over. Wait, hold on one moment. Yeah, I'm glad it's over. That was a lot. And half exhausting. I mean, yeah, it was fun to read, don't get me wrong. Very fun to read. I had a good time. There's a doodle of a locket. Really? I wish we saw it, but maybe Booba would kill my channel, you know? Especially on YouTube. There's way more going on than expected. I don't know how I'm gonna summarize this chapter for next week. But I'm not... I really wanted to do art today, but holy fuck, my throat is cooked because because of this long ass fucking chapter. I hope you guys enjoyed though. I enjoyed that chapter nonetheless. But I was holy moly stumbling every 5 seconds. Oh well. The book resume will be crazy. Bro, I enjoyed like I had a fun time. Now we have a tattoo idea. So that's great. That was fun. Holy god. Unexpected though. I really wanted to draw today. It's okay. We can draw again some other time. Who's live today? Who is live? Let's go raid somebody. I'm out of here. I'm out of this joint. Phew. Puka, we could raid Puka. Is sick of us? Yes, bro. Fuck. I'm dead. I was gonna stream until 5 p.m. today. Holy god. Ah. God damn it. Fuck. Really? I did not know that. She's playing Deadlock right now. But we're in Puka. She's playing Undertale. Puka plap. Like 3, about to be 4. 8 minutes till 4 p.m. Alright. YouTube people, you know the drill. Well, you should know the drill by now, I guess. I'm just gonna say goodbye to everybody in chat. And if you'd like to stay for like a minute longer, you can hang out with us over on Twitch. Otherwise, here's the Discord for YouTube chat. Hold on, how do I get this to YouTube? Oh shit, that's okay, whatever. I'm too tired, guys. But yeah, we'll see you around YouTube chat. I don't stream on weekends, so I'll see you on my Monday, your Sunday night. And I hope you enjoyed our reading session today. Goodbye, good night, have a good weekend.